Yes, we are live.
Okay, I'm calling to order the the board meeting for finance purposes for October 22nd, 2020. Can I get a motion to adopt our agenda for the meeting?
So moved.
Motion to, great.
Okay.
Second.
All right, roll call vote.
Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Russell.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Gibson.
Aye. Okay, do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Item number 1 on our agenda is, item number 2 on our agenda is the monthly finance update. And I'm
Did we
guessing
do the minutes?
you just seconded.
I thought that was for approval of the agenda.
That was the agenda.
Yeah, that was the
You're
agenda.
right. You're right. All right. Number 1 is the approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote.
Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gibson.
Aye. Now we're ready for the monthly finance update, item number 2 on the agenda. I'm guessing that's Chuck.
Yes, it is.
I'll ask the question that starts every Zoom call. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
This will be a review of September monthly financials. So we'll start off quarterly. We're 3 months through the fiscal year. So we've got 1 quarter under our belt, which would put us 25% if everything's tracking linearly. We'll start with revenues, looking at water revenues, which include the sales, service charges, and watershed management fees that you can see if you're looking at attachment 1 to the item. And we're slightly ahead of that 25% bar there in water revenues at 30%, $24.8 million. And if you look at the attachment 1, you can see that water sales are really the driver for that. So service charge and watershed fee are right about where they should be at 24 and 23% of budget. And then water sales are slightly ahead at 33%. So that's kind of pulling that whole bucket of revenues about 5% ahead of that linear 25% mark. The other revenues that we have, rents, grants, watershed payments, et cetera, those are tracking at $900,000, right about 25% quarter of the fiscal year budget. Then fire flow fee, we've received virtually none of that, $4.5 million. And again, you know that fire flow fee revenue comes in via the property tax rolls. So that comes in primarily we'll receive that in January and May after the December and April remitments. Capital revenues is $17.3 million budgeted. Of that, $16.8 million is the capital maintenance fee, and then the remainder is connection fees. And to date, we're at $21.7 million, so tracking just slightly below our linear budget mark on the capital maintenance fee.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck, I have a question on the budget. And I know I asked this at the last meeting, so I'm sorry to be redundant, but on the budget number that we're comparing the actual to, is that the budget number with the 5% increase in the biannual budget, or is that an adjusted budget to reflect no 5%?
So what that number is, that $16.8 million takes into account that we delayed that 4% increase to January.
Hold on a second. Okay. I'm just saying, as far as actual to budget, the budget number is just, we're continuing along our adjusted budget, correct?
Correct. We adjusted for the delay in the rate increase.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. And then monthly comparison, and this is in dollars, not CCF. You can see for July, August, and September, those blue lines there represent this fiscal year. The red lines represent the last fiscal year, and you can see that we're tracking just slightly ahead on our consumption. Consumption was ahead by about 6% compared to last year, and then we were about 3% over budget. So a little bit ahead, but not markedly for the month of September.
Mhm. All right.
So this is accrual, not collected.
Correct.
No, this is
Okay.
this is actual. This is actually what was billed. So this is revenue. This is not net.
But it's
Also
accrued.
not collected.
Right.
Right. Some of this could be uncollected. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You'll
Okay.
see that in our aging reports. So we've been showing you the comparison, and this is in CCFs, not in dollars, just so that you can see what's happening in all of the different resi codes for consumption. So as you would imagine there, as we've seen previously, single family is up about 12%, looking at the quarter there at 2,121 CCFs. Duplexes went down. And again, we talked about this a bit at the last meeting, that there was an actual adjustment to the duplex category, and the board asked a question about whether that adjustment had been automatic or if it was something that was voluntary. And legal was kind enough to provide me with ordinance 445 that the board adopted. And it looks like what happened was that to comply with state law, the district used the Marin County Assessor Recorder codes for additional dwelling units and junior additional dwelling units, and those were automatically moved into single family so that they could take advantage of the higher allowable tiers. And so what should be remaining in there now is actual duplexes, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Okay.
And then you can see on multi-units, 3 through 4, 5 and 9, 10 plus, really not a lot of movement. You see a little over 10% increase there in the multi-units 10 plus, the larger apartment buildings. The institutional, which includes things like hospitals and nursing homes and city and town facilities, that's down a little bit under 10%, again, to be expected. Commercial and industrial is also down pretty markedly. That's down by about 17%. So that's a pretty large decrease in usage, which again, I think given the things we're dealing with right now, to be expected. And then irrigation is pretty much level.
I would expect irrigation to have jumped up given the lack of rain and so forth, but
yeah, it's up a little bit, but not, that's
Yeah.
probably about a 3% increase there. It's just not up much.
mhm.
And then raw water, that's just for the golf course.
That's the golf course. That's just for Meadow Club.
Yeah, Meadow Club.
Mhm.
So the finance committee had also asked a couple meetings ago that we start giving them data on our aging. And this again is a snapshot. Last we couldn't give you the 30-day, but we've sorted that problem out now, and we can actually provide the 30-day. And you can see that starting with those 30-day past dues, it's increased markedly. I mean, that's a 22% increase going from 1,083 up to 1,322, and that's in thousands of dollars per above. So that's dollars, not number of customers. But that is up markedly. And then as we proceed outwards there, looking at the 60-day, 90-day, 180-day, and then greater than 1 year, you can see that all of those columns are going up. And you can see the total there is going up quite a bit. And that is definitely going to have an effect on our revenues when we book for bad debt. So we kind of went back and looked at how we looked last year with our aging. And so what I told you last time is normally we write off about $1 million against our revenues. And that $1 million is comprised of bad debt, and then we also included in there write-ups for leaks. So if we separate those things out and we just restrict our conversation to just allowance for bad debt, and we go back to last year for the first quarter, we were about $42,000 that we were looking at in those accounts that were exceeding 180 days, which to us would be a candidate to be written off for bad debt. So that would put us for about, just rough math here, about $170,000 for the year, last year. If we zoom forward to September 2020 and we look at the first quarter, July 1st to September 30th there, we're now at $444,000 in customers that are over that 180-day mark. So that's about a tenfold increase. So that, that's not to say that by the end of the fiscal year, that necessarily will drive what we write off totally, because a lot can happen between now and then. But I think it's reasonable to say we're going to see a pretty large effect on our bad debt expense.
Mm-hmm.
And Chuck, so the COVID kind of surge of debt would be from 180 up about, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's about right, because I'm thinking if the event started, sometime around late February, the beginning of March, that math, that math's about exactly right. Yep.
Given that projection, is there anything we should be doing now that we're not doing in way of preparation? I don't mean necessarily in collection, but really more in budget adjustment, anything like that.
Yeah, and we are, Director Gibson, we're looking at, we're in the budget process right now. So, I mean, this is something that's going to be, thought about during that budget creation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're in, when we show you the slides on, on fund balances, we're healthy, we're fine. There's, nothing to panic about here, but yeah, definitely something we need to be thinking about.
Yeah. It's something Congress needs to think about too.
Yeah, fortunately our problems don't have trillions on the end, but.
No, but it's somewhat exemplary of, what is rippling out over the whole public sector,
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. So then I think last time the board had asked us to kind of dissect this a little more, and there was some interest in how these receivables or how these delinquencies were spread out. So we kind of took that 60-day past due line right here, and we kind of dissected this. There's your 424 total for the 60-day, and we kind of broke this down. Sorry, we broke this down by account type, so you can see how this is spread out. And as you would imagine, out of that $424,000 in delinquencies, the preponderance of it, $338,000, is in single-family residence, and then the rest of it's kind of spread out among those other categories. But it is primarily single-family where those delinquencies are occurring.
wow, that's an interesting analysis for sure.
Yeah, and in one piece that's missing here is what the denominator is there, and I would imagine, looking at our other charts, single-family residential is probably where most of our accounts are, so it probably makes some sense.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have any estimate of the actual number of accounts involved?
The only number that I have on accounts, Director, is the total accounts, which I think is around 67,000. Memory
But
serves.
then you can't break out the number of delinquent accounts, just so we have a number of the percentage of our account holders that are delinquent.
We do have that information for 30-day.
Yeah, it might be interesting to look at.
It's probably we should share, either Chuck or Jeannie. The Chronicle has asked
Yeah.
all the water agencies. Why don't we just, because that article is probably coming out, why don't we share what the questions they've asked? And
Sure. So the Chronicle is taking a look at the Bay Area in general in terms of delinquencies, and they have asked water agencies in the Bay Area for a few data points. For us, it would be a data point of October 1st. So they are looking at the number of delinquent accounts defined as 30 days late or greater in 2018, 2019, and this year. And their goal there is to see the impact that COVID has created on those delinquencies and also the impact on the different agencies. So we're in the process of pulling that information together for them.
Right. So that might include the actual number of delinquent accounts and not the cumulative delinquency. So that would be interesting. You know, it's interesting information.
Mhm.
Now, we have pulled that data for them, as Jeannie said, on, you know, based on the 30-day delinquencies.
Okay. Yeah, well, good to know.
Yeah.
And then this is the usual look we give you on tier consumption, and really nothing's changed there. You know, as you can see, the primary consumption is in tiers 1 and 2. You can see that, you know, in fiscal year 16, we had a large dip there after 15, and we've just kind of gotten back to that fiscal year 15 level of consumption.
Mhm.
And then again, some data that the board had requested some time ago that we've added into this presentation was AMI data. So this is looking at just residential data for Tiburon Belvedere, 1,185 meters. And it kind of is now matching up more with the data that you saw before on consumption, where you're seeing July, August, and September. Those that orange line there is the current year, and then the blue line's the past year. And you can just see kind of a little bit of bump there in consumption based on the AMI data, which is a little more real time.
Mhm.
We pulled the same data for institutional and business meters. This is a smaller population. It's only 86 meters there. But that shows, again, the same things our previous slides showed. This is starting to marry up more, where we're seeing in real time the fall off in demand. This is a lot more significant. You're seeing 11 to 12% there when you look across July, August, and September usage on 2020 compared to last year.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm surprised that one isn't higher. The gap isn't bigger.
Yeah.
You know, it
Yeah,
seems.
it's just
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if that's because of the sample size is only 86 meters, so that might have something to do with it too.
I would think that would make it worse, frankly. You know, unless we happen to hit 86 guys who are doing fine during the COVID. You know, I don't know. It's just interesting. It seems like it might be worth having the water conservation folks touch base with those guys to find out if they're just using more water, you know, proportionally per customer, or what they're doing. It might be worth looking at that family to see where the water demand is coming from, because they could be just letting things run, not realizing it.
Right.
Are any of the commercial accounts delinquent?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't have them broken out like that. So I'm just looking back at slide 4 here, and so commercial and industrial there, you can see that's, you know, on a percentage basis, that's about 17%. And then we're looking here, we're about 12% there on the September graph. So, you know, a little bit different. But the other, you know, the previous look that we looked at is going to have that delay that we have on our billing cycle. The AMI is not. And then moving into expenditures, everything there is tracking as we would expect. Personnel services are right on track at right around 25%. Maintenance operation expenses are, you know, a little bit ahead of the 25% mark, but some of that's just in things that we pay, you know, at one time in the year. So it's a timing issue, like with our, general liability insurance, we just paid that in July. So that's going to that's going to accelerate that spending a little bit. Financing costs, we have them at 16%. If we smooth those out, we're going to make our next debt service payment in December. So if we actually smooth that out and put another $800,000 in interest costs in this month, we'd actually be right at 25%. And the capital allocation of labor, right about the budget with that too. And you can kind of look down at district projects there. Last month, when we showed you this, we were at 7.7%, and now that's doubled to 15.8%. So, it's just kind of timing issues with projects. They're just not quite as, they move in gluts, unlike the operating budget. And then fire flow projects, we've only spent $100,000 there. And again, you've seen in the fire flow fund, we've been trying to get that back to health. So the spending there has been reduced by design. And then, as I mentioned previously, our fund balances are looking healthy. Restricted and designated fund is at $14.3 million. We drew down on that a bit as we make payments in the beginning of the year for things like PERS that we pay, upfront one time to save ourselves interest costs on that. Rate Stabilization Reserve Fund remains at $9.4 million as it has for the last year or so. Fire Flow Fund is now healthy at $2 million. That came up, I think about 7 months ago. We were actually at a negative fund balance there. Pension Reserve Fund remains at $2 million. And then the capital fund's at $24 million. The operating unrestricted fund is at $28.2 million, which means that our operating fund balance to budget is 3.9, up a little bit from last month. Debt service coverage is healthy at 2.7. Outstanding debt remains at $142 million. And then those smaller debts that we have, like with Las Colinas Valley Sanitary, those are at $7.5 million. And then we've been showing the board also this effect of COVID from a financial standpoint. So we've expended $330,000 in total since the event began. This is up by about, I think, $27,000 from the last month when we showed you this. A lot of that's for deep spray of buildings and vehicles. That's about a third of that, $100,000. And then we have additional sick leave is about $120,000. And then the rest of that is employee time spent on COVID work, and then some other COVID related expenses that we have.
Okay. Now that again is this fiscal year so far, right?
This is since inception. So this is from the time the COVID event started.
Okay.
Yeah, we probably should add the delinquent accounts to the impacts, I think.
That's a good point.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. So in summary, revenues and expenditures, as we showed you, are really tracking with budget for the most part. Our fund balances remain healthy, which is good. And COVID is having an impact. It's a minor impact, and when I say a minor impact, I'm speaking totally from a financial standpoint.
Right.
So overall, from a financial standpoint, we look good.
So Chuck, Jeannie she pulled the numbers looping back to the earlier question on the number of delinquent accounts. So.
Great. Thanks, Ben. So I have that in front of me. And as of October 1, let's see. So the data point is October 1. So as of October 1, we had a total of 60,768 customers. So the data points I have is on October 1 of 2020, 8,689 customer accounts were more than 30 days late and owed a collective total of $2.4 million. As of October 1 in 2019, about a year ago, 5,730 customer accounts were more than 30 days past due, and that was for a total of $686,000. And then dating back to 2018, the same date, October 1st, 5,306 72 customer accounts were more than 30 days past due for a total amount owed of $713,000. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. That's a substantial increase. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
That number of delinquent accounts sort of average, but from 5 to 8,000 is a 60% jump. So that's significant, for sure.
Yeah, that's 30 days. If we were to probably write the article, we wouldn't pick 30 days,
Right.
maybe 60 or 90. But
Right.
since they're looking at it on a year-to-year and Bay Area wide, it's probably as good as anything for their purpose.
Could you guys get the 60-day data for another meeting just to kind of see comparison? Maybe
Okay.
not.
We can get that data.
Yeah, it would be interesting because that would really sort of flesh out the real increase in long-term delinquency versus, I forgot to mail a check kind of situation.
Right.
And I think we should also get that commercial pulled up together.
Yeah.
Let's get that question answered too.
Yeah.
Rather than waiting for another meeting, I think that one I would prefer to see in an email, just so we have the information in case the Chronicle gets frisky.
Yeah, they may. But it's good information. I don't know. Hopefully it's not too much excavation for you guys to pull it up. So.
Yeah, we'll see what we can pull. I know we can pull the 60-day on the breakout of the Resi codes. I think we can do that too. So
yeah,
no problem.
Yeah, that would be good.
Cool.
Okay, are we ready for the next item? Number 3, quarterly.
I'm sorry. Before we go on, I do have, sorry, I can't see because of this slide. We do have one person who's raised his hand, Roger Roberts.
All right, good.
Go ahead, Mr. Roberts.
You hear me?
We do.
Yes.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Morning.
Morning.
With respect to the delinquencies, wouldn't it be useful to understand and have information as to where they are located? Are they spread across the entire district, or are they concentrated in certain areas? That might be very useful information.
That's a great idea.
That is actually information we're pulling together. At the next finance report, we're going to be bringing some of more detailed information about the nature of these customers, the classes, the geographic distributions, and more statistics as the board starts to think about approaches when we go back post-COVID. But so it's a good comment, and we are pulling that together, and we'll be bringing that to the next finance.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Roger.
I have no further comments.
All right, that takes us, I guess, to the quarterly investment report.
Right by it. Okay, so quarterly investment report. This is a color version of the very hard to read graph that is in your packet. So most of our portfolio is invested with LAIF, Local Agency Investment Fund, and you can see the returns on that on the blue line in the upper left corner there. So that basically shows you as you're moving from left to right. That is July, August, and September. So you can see, as you would imagine, the LAIF rates, like all other rates, have been going down pretty steadily. Started about 93 basis points in July and have worked their way down to 81 basis points now. The line below that is our portfolio overall. So again, that's tracking with LAIF, and then we have some money invested in a money market fund that has very low return. So the portfolio overall is tracked downwards from 89 basis points down to 66.5 basis points now. On the bottom,
And Chuck, is that annual or the quarter?
these are annualized, but
Is that annual? Okay.
so on the bottom there, you can just kind of see what the yield curves are doing. So working from left to right, you have, close in at 3 month, and then out at the far right, which is the limits of our investment policy. Sorry, that's what you're looking at overall in the market, and those are treasuries. So you're working from 10 basis points in at 3 months, and that pretty much converges for July, August, and September. And then you can see as you work out, those rates start to increase. And then you can see September there is the green line. So you can see that essentially what that's showing, that the yield curve over the last 3 months is steepened a little bit at that 3-year inflection point, which is good, but you're still seeing very suppressed rates right now in the markets. I think looking at 5-year treasuries right now, you're at about 1/3 of a percentage point annualized on return, 36 basis points. And if you went back, just even to the beginning of the year in January, that 5-year treasuries would have got you 1.67%. So, over the course of this year, we've seen a market fall off. It really started, you can really see it right in that March timeframe when we entered the COVID event, where rates just dropped precipitously. So that's, probably they seem flat for about the past 4 months or so, 5 months, but that's going to keep some moderating effect on any return that we can expect in our portfolio. So that's my report on our investment portfolio.
Okay.
How much is in the portfolio?
You can see that in your attachment. I believe it was 77 million. We got in WAVE. And yeah, so the total that we have there is including WAVE, our Fidelity Government Money Market Fund, and the U.S. Bank checking account is $77 million. And that's in attachment 1 to item 3.
Chuck, I have a question and suggestion too, which is it's pretty dismal to see this kind of return on the investment. And there are some other vehicles that are approved under the finance code that I've raised before. Specifically, there's an instrument called Ginnie Mae's, which are government-backed mortgage securities. And they're backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government for whatever that's worth. But I mean, that's the ultimate backstop, I think, for any type of investment. And it's got a much higher rate of return. And so I've discussed it before with Jim Gibbs and I think your predecessor, but to me, wouldn't it be worth looking into at least setting up maybe a portion of our reserves as a long-term account that is in an approved vehicle that has a higher return, just so we can get some growth. So it's just, I understand we need to have access to reserves, but it's highly unlikely we would need 100% access right away even under an emergency scenario. And it just seems if we socked a little away into a growth or investment type account, that we were just, accumulating better returns, we could grow our reserves.
Yeah, Director Brackman, those are good comments. And I think I would be interested in exploring those more from a diversification standpoint. If I look at the 5-year Freddie Mac right now, it's getting about 55 basis points. So it's not doing quite as well as WAVE. And just kind of remember, WAVE it's almost like a mutual fund. They have a portfolio and it's spread out. So about 18% of their portfolio is in those agency funds, those GSEs like Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and those type of things. So yeah, I don't, right now it's hard to get return, but from a diversification standpoint, it might be something that we could explore.
Yeah, I think it's worth exploring. And I know now this is so uncertain, particularly right now. But I think, as far as planning is concerned and, maybe strategic planning, it's something MMWD should consider.
Maybe we make that part of the 10-year plan, Chuck.
Yeah.
Or at least a discussion about it. It's just,
Yeah, a chapter or paragraph or something.
Yeah, and there may be other alternatives too. I don't know. Let's.
There aren't many, Jack. That's so restricted on. And you remember our adventure with Lehman Brothers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, the types of accounts are set out, I think, in our code, which is just a repeat of the state finance code.
Right.
So,
Right.
we can't.
Exactly right.
We can't just go out and, invest in tech stocks or in equities. It's very restricted to, the most secure type of investments that are backed by full faith and credit. So,
Well, they're not backed because we were allowed to invest in Lehman and Lehman hung us out to dry.
Yeah.
So nobody backed us up on that one.
I'm not aware of that one, but what I've seen is
we dropped $1 million with Lehman.
Yeah.
They were considered the gold standard bond, like a savings account. And of course, you remember Lehman going back belly up in 2008. And, I complained to Senator Gillibrand about this. I was at a fundraiser with her and I said, you guys are just not doing your job here. San Mateo County lost $350 million with Lehman. And so we're peanuts compared to them.
Well,
but,
I think
that was one of the things that we were allowed to invest in.
Yeah. PERS also lost a lot of money, but
yeah.
what I'm referring to in a Jenny Mae is a government-backed security. So,
Sure. No, I understand that. I got that. I'm just saying that Lehman was allowed as an allowed investment with no backup because it had nothing backed it up when they would be PK'd.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to the repeal of the Depression era banking law that separated investment banks from commercial banks.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Right.
And they all took advantage of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Any further questions on this? All right. Well, with that, it's probably worth noting that our November board meeting has been rescheduled for the 10th as opposed to the 3rd.
President Gibson, I just wanted to see if Terry had any public comment on this item. Did we already do that?
Oh,
No,
we
we
do not. We do not have any public comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, I think we're ready to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Hey, Chuck, can we keep going? You and me?
Absolutely. I think so.
Well, let's take it off of the
Yeah, I'm checking
streaming
out.
and all that.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
bye,
Yeah,
everyone.
thanks, guys. Are we off the streaming, Terry?
No, I need to completely take this off. Is it just going to be between you and Chuck?
Yeah.
Then maybe it would be better because it's on, it would be better if you do it on a phone call or if Chuck can set